From wreckage to redemption. The sweltering heat of twin suns beat down mercilessly on the exposed scrap field. Zane Mercer wiped sweat from his brow, his weathered face creased with concentration as he picked through the remains of crashed starships. His muscular frame, honed by years in the Galactic Defense Force before going independent, moved with practiced efficiency among the twisted metal. "Damn this heat," he muttered, kicking aside a warped panel. His scanner beeped, indicating a power signature about 50 meters ahead. The planet Alteris was notorious as a dumping ground for failed expeditions and pirate raids gone wrong, a graveyard of dreams, but also a treasure trove for those who knew what to look for. Zane adjusted his course, stepping carefully over skeletal remains of an old mining vessel. The scanner's readings grew stronger as he approached a relatively intact cruiser. Its hull was breached but its internal systems possibly salvageable. "Jackpot," he whispered, a grin spreading across his face. As he neared the wreckage, his trained eye spotted signs of recent activity, footprints in the dust, disturbed debris, a makeshift path leading into the ship's exposed interior. His hand moved instinctively to the pulse pistol at his hip. "Hello?" he called out, his deep voice echoing among the twisted metal. "Anyone home?" Silence answered him, broken only by the distant howl of desert wind. Zane ducked under a fallen support beam to enter the ship's cargo hold. The interior was dark, illuminated only by shafts of light streaming through holes in the hull. His armor's built-in lights activated automatically, casting a bright beam ahead. A sudden noise, metal scraping against metal, froze him in his tracks. Zane spun around, weapon half-drawn. "I know you're there. Come out. I'm not looking for trouble." For a moment, nothing happened. Then from behind a stack of crates, a slender figure emerged. Zane blinked in surprise. It was a humanoid alien girl, appearing no older than 16 by human standards. Her skin was an iridescent blue that seemed to shimmer in the dim light, with patterns that shifted subtly across her face. Four small ridges crowned her forehead, and her eyes, large, luminous, and entirely silver, regarded him with absolute terror. She wore tattered garments that had clearly seen better days, and her feet were bare and covered in dust. "Stay back," she warned, her voice melodic despite the fear. "I know what your kind does to my people." Zane immediately holstered his weapon and raised his hands, palms out. "Easy there. I'm not here to hurt you." The girl backed away, pressing herself against the wall. "Liar. All humans say that, then they take us." "Kid, I don't know what humans you've met, but I'm not in any slave trade. I'm just a salvager looking for parts." Zane remained still, giving her space. "What's your name?" She hesitated, suspicion written across her features. "Naira," she finally said. "I'm Zane. Zane Mercer." He slowly crouched down, making himself less threatening. "How long have you been living in this wreck?" "Since the traders abandoned me," she admitted reluctantly. "Said I was too much trouble, not worth the feed." Anger flashed through Zane, but he kept his expression neutral. "When's the last time you ate?" Naira shrugged her thin shoulders. "Found some emergency rations 2 days ago." Zane reached slowly into his pack and pulled out a nutrition bar. He unwrapped it, broke off a piece, then tossed it gently toward her. Naira snatched it from the air with surprising speed and sniffed it cautiously before taking a small bite. "It's not poison," Zane said with a slight smile. "If I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't waste good food doing it." The girl devoured the piece, then looked at him expectantly. Zane tossed her the rest of the bar, which disappeared just as quickly. "Listen," he said, "I've got a ship not far from here. Clean water, food, medical supplies if you need them. You're welcome to come with me, get cleaned up, have a proper meal." "Why would you help me?" Naira asked, suspicion evident in her voice. "Because leaving a kid alone in this hellhole isn't something I can do. Call it a character flaw." "I'm not a kid," she protested weakly. "Sure you're not," Zane replied with a gentle smile. He stood slowly and extended his hand toward her. What do you say? It's just an offer of help. No strings attached. You can leave whenever you want. Naira stared at his outstretched hand for a long moment, conflict clear in her expression. Finally, hunger and desperation won out over fear. She took a hesitant step forward, then another, until she was close enough to place her small blue hand in his. If you try anything, she warned, her voice stronger than before, I'll stab you in your sleep. Zane couldn't help but laugh. Fair enough, kid. Fair enough. The walk back to Zane's ship was tense and silent. Naira kept a careful distance, her eyes constantly darting between him and potential escape routes. For his part, Zane maintained a casual pace, occasionally pointing out interesting wreckage or warning her about unstable terrain. There she is, he said finally, gesturing ahead. The drifter. Naira stopped in her tracks, eyes widening. The drifter was a mid-sized transport vessel, clearly modified for extended solo travel. Its hull bore the scars of numerous encounters, patches of newer metal contrasting with the weathered exterior. Despite its somewhat battered appearance, the ship radiated a sense of reliability. It's not much, Zane admitted, but she's home. It's big, Naira murmured. Zane chuckled. Wait till you see the inside. He approached the ship and placed his hand on a scanner beside the cargo ramp. With a hydraulic hiss, the ramp descended, revealing the dimly lit interior. After you. She hesitated, then squared her shoulders and walked up the ramp, her bare feet making no sound on the metal surface. Zane followed, tapping a panel to close the ramp behind them. Drifter, lights to 60%, he called out. The interior illumination gradually brightened, revealing a surprisingly well-organized cargo hold. Various crates and equipment were secured along the walls, leaving a clear path to an internal door. You talk to your ship? Naira asked, glancing around nervously. The ship's AI. Drifter, say hello to our guest. A soft, gender-neutral voice emanated from hidden speakers. Welcome aboard. I am the Drifter's integrated artificial intelligence system. How shall I address you? Naira jumped slightly at the voice, then composed herself. Naira, she replied cautiously. Acknowledged, Naira. Your vital signs indicate mild dehydration and nutritional deficiency. Would you like me to prepare appropriate refreshments? Zane smiled at Naira's startled expression. Drifter's program for basic medical assessment comes in handy when you work alone. Yes, water would be nice, Naira said hesitantly. Preparing now, Drifter confirmed. Captain, shall I also prepare the guest quarters? Yeah, good idea, Zane replied. He gestured toward the internal door. Come on, let's get you cleaned up and fed. The living area of the ship was surprisingly comfortable, with modular furniture that could be reconfigured as needed. A small galley occupied one corner, where a dispenser was already filling a glass with clear water. Naira approached it cautiously, then grabbed the glass and drank greedily, water spilling down her chin in her haste. Easy, Zane cautioned. Too much too fast will make you sick. She slowed down reluctantly, finishing the water and placing the glass back in the dispenser, which immediately began refilling it. The bathroom's through there, Zane said, pointing to a door on the far wall. There's a shower with hot water, a real luxury out here. I'll find you some clean clothes while you wash up. Naira looked down at her filthy garments, then back at Zane. Why are you doing this? Zane sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. Look, Naira, I've seen enough in this galaxy to know that sometimes people just need a break. You're alone, you're in trouble, and I can help. It's as simple as that. Nothing's ever that simple, she replied, her voice tinged with bitterness beyond her years. Maybe not, Zane conceded, but for now, let's pretend it is. Go get cleaned up. Food will be ready when you're done. After a moment's hesitation, Naira nodded and disappeared into the bathroom. The sound of running water soon followed. Zane exhaled slowly, then began removing his armor piece by piece. Beneath it, he wore a simple black compression suit that highlighted his muscular frame. He stretched, relieved to be free of the heavy protection. "Drifter, what's our supply situation?" he asked quietly. "Current inventory includes sufficient provisions for 2 persons for approximately 3 weeks, Captain," the AI responded. "However, clothing options for someone of Naira's size and physiology are limited." "Show me what we've got." A small screen on the wall lit up, displaying inventory images. Zane scrolled through, selecting a few items that might work. "Prepare a meal for 2. Something nutritious but not too heavy. Her system needs to readjust to regular food." "Acknowledged. May I inquire about your intentions regarding our guest?" Zane paused, considering the question. "I'm not sure yet. Can't leave her in that junkyard, but I can't exactly adopt an alien teenager either. The nearest station is 3 days' journey at standard speed. The Unity station at Proxima Junction would have proper facilities for displaced persons," Drifter offered. "Let's not rush to decisions," Zane replied. "One step at a time." When Naira emerged from the bathroom nearly an hour later, the transformation was remarkable. Her blue skin now clean and clear revealed intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with a soft inner light. She wore a simple gray t-shirt that hung to her knees like a dress, cinched at the waist with a cord. "Feel better?" Zane asked, looking up from the table where he'd laid out a simple meal. Naira nodded, approaching cautiously. "The water was really hot," she said, a note of wonder in her voice. "One of life's simple pleasures," Zane agreed. "Hungry?" She nodded again, more enthusiastically this time, and took a seat across from him. The meal consisted of a protein-rich stew, synthesized but flavored to resemble traditional earth beef, along with a side of steamed vegetables and soft bread. Naira ate methodically, clearly savoring each bite but pacing herself. Zane ate in companionable silence, occasionally glancing at his young guest. "What species are you?" he asked finally. "If you don't mind me asking." Naira looked up, hesitating before answering. "Lysian, from the series Nebula." Zane nodded thoughtfully. "Long way from home." "I've never been home," she replied simply. "Born on a transport ship. My mother was property." The matter-of-fact way she said it made Zane's jaw tighten. "I'm sorry." Naira shrugged, returning to her meal. "It's just how it is." "It shouldn't be," Zane said firmly. "The Galactic Coalition has anti-slavery laws." "The Coalition," Naira interrupted with a bitter laugh, "doesn't care what happens in the outer systems. Your laws don't reach here." Zane couldn't argue with that. Despite its claims of universal jurisdiction, the Coalition's influence diminished dramatically beyond the core systems. Out here in what many called the fringe, local warlords and criminal syndicates made their own rules. "Well, you're safe now," he said instead. "Tomorrow we'll figure out what's next. For tonight, just rest." Later, as he showed Naira to the guest quarters, a small but comfortable cabin with a real bed, a luxury she clearly wasn't accustomed to based on her expression, Zane felt an unfamiliar protectiveness stirring within him. "Get some rest," he told her. "My cabin's just across the hall if you need anything. Drifter can also help, just speak normally and it'll hear you." "Thank you," Naira said quietly, sitting on the edge of the bed. "For everything." Zane nodded awkwardly, unused to gratitude. "No problem, kid. Sleep well." Later, as he lay in his own bunk staring at the ceiling, Zane wondered what the hell he was doing. He'd spent the last 5 years avoiding entanglements, living the solitary life of a salvager. Now he had a teenage alien girl aboard his ship, possibly with trouble on her tail. "Drifter," he whispered, "am I making a mistake here?" The AI's voice came softly through a speaker near his bed. "Insufficient data to determine probability of error, Captain." However, based on your established ethical parameters, your actions align with your core values. Zane snorted. That's AI speak for, you're being you, isn't it? Essentially, yes, Drifter replied, a hint of humor in its synthesized voice. Keep monitoring her vitals tonight, Zane instructed. Alert me if anything seems off. Of course, Captain. Good night. Night, Drifter. As he drifted toward sleep, Zane couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a significant turn. Whether for better or worse remained to be seen. Hearts across the stars. 3 years had passed aboard the Drifter, each day bringing new lessons and experiences. Naira absorbed knowledge like a sponge: navigation, mechanics, weapons training, even cooking. Her slender frame had developed lean muscle, and her once timid demeanor had given way to quiet confidence. At 20 standard years old, she had blossomed into a capable young woman. Zane watched her growth with pride, though lately an uncomfortable awareness had crept into their interactions. He found himself noticing things he shouldn't: the graceful way she moved, how her iridescent blue skin seemed to capture the light, the musical quality of her laughter. He buried these thoughts deep, focusing instead on their next salvage operation. Approaching the coordinates, Naira announced from the co-pilot seat, her fingers dancing across the navigation console with practiced ease. Sensors show minimal radiation. Should be safe to board. The derelict research vessel hung in the void before them, its hull intact but dark, power systems long dead, a perfect salvage target, abandoned but potentially full of valuable equipment. Good work, Zane said, guiding the Drifter into a parallel course. Run the pre-boarding checklist while I suit up. In the cargo bay, Zane donned his EVA suit, checking seals and oxygen levels. He heard Naira's footsteps behind him and turned to find her already in her own suit, helmet tucked under her arm. What do you think you're doing? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Coming with you, she replied matter-of-factly. I've done the simulations 100 times. I'm ready. Zane frowned. Simulations aren't the real thing. Space doesn't forgive mistakes. Neither do you, Naira countered with a small smile. That's why I don't make them. Her confidence wasn't misplaced. She had proven herself capable time and again, mastering every skill he taught her with remarkable speed. Still, the thought of her in danger made his stomach knot. Fine, he conceded. But you stay behind me, follow my orders exactly, and if I say we leave, we leave. No arguments. Yes, Captain, she replied, her tone playfully formal. The boarding went smoothly. They crossed the void between ships via tether, entered through an emergency airlock, and began methodically searching the abandoned vessel. The research ship's interior was eerie in the beam of their helmet lights, papers and personal effects floating in the zero gravity, telling the story of a hasty evacuation. Life support failure, probably, Zane commented, examining a control panel. They had time to get out but not to take much with them. Their loss, our gain, Naira replied, carefully collecting floating data crystals and storing them in a secure pouch. They worked their way toward the laboratory sections where the most valuable equipment would be found. Zane kept a careful eye on Naira, but she moved with confidence in the zero-G environment, using handholds and gentle pushes to navigate precisely. In the main lab, they hit the jackpot: advanced analysis equipment, specialized tools, and most importantly, a prototype atmospheric processor that would fetch a small fortune from the right buyer. Careful with that, Zane warned as Naira began disconnecting the processor from its housing. Those coolant lines might still be pressurized. I've got it, she assured him, her movements slow and deliberate. Just need to. A sudden tremor ran through the ship, sending loose items flying. Zane instinctively reached out, catching Naira's arm to stabilize her. What was that? She asked, her voice tight. Zane checked his suit scanner. Micrometeoroid impact, looks like. Drifter, status report, he called over the comms. Minor debris field detected, the AI's voice came through clearly. Recommend immediate evacuation. Probability of additional impacts, 78%. Time to go, Zane said firmly. Leave the processor. But we're so close, Naira protested, still working on the final connection. Not worth our lives. Now, Naira. She hesitated for just a moment, then nodded, securing her tools. They made their way back toward the airlock, moving faster now but still careful in the zero-G environment. They were nearly there when a second, more violent impact rocked the ship. A piece of equipment broke free from its mounting, hurtling toward Naira. Zane reacted instinctively, pushing her aside and taking the brunt of the impact on his shoulder. Pain flared through his arm, but his suit remained intact. Zane. Naira's voice was sharp with concern. I'm fine, he grunted, though the pain suggested otherwise. Keep moving. They reached the airlock and cycled through, then made the tense journey back to the drifter as small debris particles pinged against their suits. Once safely aboard, Naira helped Zane remove his helmet, her face tight with worry. Let me see, she demanded, already reaching for the medical scanner. It's just bruised, Zane insisted, but allowed her to help him out of the upper portion of his suit. A dark bruise was already forming across his shoulder and chest. Naira's fingers gently probed the area, her touch professional but somehow intimate. Nothing broken, but you'll be sore for days. She looked up at him, her large, silver eyes reflecting the cargo bay lights. You shouldn't have done that. I could have dodged it. Maybe, Zane acknowledged. Instinct took over. Her hand lingered on his chest, and for a moment, something unspoken passed between them. Zane felt his heart rate increase, and not from the pain. Naira seemed to realize the intimacy of their position and stepped back, the patterns on her blue cheeks pulsing more rapidly. I'll get the medkit, she said, her voice oddly breathless. Later, after Zane's injury had been treated and they'd set course for their next destination, they sat in the galley sharing a meal. Naira was unusually quiet, pushing food around her plate. Something on your mind? Zane asked. Soul. She looked up, seemed to consider her words carefully. Why did you really take me in? 3 years ago, I mean. The question caught him off guard. I told you. You gave me the noble answer, she interrupted. About chances and balancing scales. But there must have been more to it. Zane set down his fork, considering. I was alone for a long time before I found you, he said finally. By choice, mostly. After what happened with my unit in the defense force, I didn't trust myself around people. What did happen? Naira asked softly. It was a question she'd never posed before, respecting his obvious reluctance to discuss his past. Zane sighed. We were sent to put down what command called an insurgency on a mining colony. Turned out to be civilians protesting unsafe conditions. My commanding officer gave the order to open fire. His jaw tightened at the memory. I refused. Some of my squad followed my lead, others didn't. It was messy. You did the right thing, Naira said with conviction. Maybe. Didn't feel like it when they court-martialed me. He shook his head. Anyway, after that, I figured I was better off on my own. Until I found this skinny blue kid giving me death glares in a junkyard. His lips quirked in a small smile. I wasn't that skinny, Naira protested with a laugh. You were all eyes and attitude, Zane countered, chuckling. But there was something about you, a spark. I couldn't just leave you there. Naira's expression softened. I'm glad you didn't. Their eyes met across the table, and that unspoken something flickered between them again. This time, neither looked away immediately. Zane felt a dangerous warmth spreading through his chest, one that had nothing to do with his injury. Naira, he began, not entirely sure what he wanted to say. I should check our course, she said suddenly, standing up. And you should rest that shoulder. She was gone before he could respond, leaving Zane alone with thoughts he couldn't quite bring himself to acknowledge. The distress call came in the middle of ship's night, jarring Zane from a restless sleep. He stumbled to the bridge, finding Naira already there, her silver eyes scanning the emergency transmission. Coalition patrol vessel, she reported without looking up. Heavy damage from what sounds like a pirate attack. Life support failing. 6 survivors. Zane hesitated. The Coalition, the organization he'd left behind, that had branded him a traitor to their cause. But lives were at stake. 3 hours at maximum thrust. They've got maybe 5 hours of air left. Plot the course, Zane ordered, pushing personal feelings aside. I'll prep the medbay. They reached the stricken patrol vessel with time to spare. The Coalition ship was a mess, hull breaches sealed with emergency patches, power fluctuating, its once proud profile now a battered shadow. Zane guided the drifter alongside, extending their docking collar to create a sealed passage between ships. Stay sharp, he told Naira as they prepared to board. Pirates sometimes use distress calls as traps. I know, she replied, checking the charge on her pulse pistol, a gift from Zane on what they designated as her 19th birthday. I'll watch our backs. The scene aboard the Coalition vessel was grim. Emergency lighting cast red shadows over corridors bearing scorch marks from energy weapons. They found the survivors in the ship's mess hall, which had been converted to a makeshift medical area, for men and 2 women in Coalition uniforms, all bearing injuries of varying severity. The ranking officer, a lieutenant with a nasty gash across his forehead, stepped forward as Zane and Naira entered. Thank the stars, he breathed. We thought we were done for. His eyes narrowed slightly as he took in Zane's non-regulation appearance. You're not Coalition. Independent salvager, Zane confirmed. Picked up your distress call. We've got medical facilities and room for all of you aboard our ship. The lieutenant nodded gratefully. Lieutenant Harlow, patrol vessel vigilant. We were ambushed by Crimson Dawn raiders. Barely got away. Zane stiffened at the mention of the Crimson Dawn, a notorious criminal organization known for slave trading among other atrocities, the same group that had likely held Naira's mother. Let's get your people moved, he said, pushing aside the connection. The worst injured first. The evacuation proceeded efficiently. Naira helped a young ensign with a broken leg, while Zane carried an unconscious navigator with plasma burns across her torso. Once all 6 Coalition personnel were settled in the drifter's medbay and common areas, Zane set course for the nearest Coalition outpost. 3 days to Outpost Sigma, he informed Lieutenant Harlow, who nodded gratefully.